Hey, welcome back, everybody. And welcome back, Dan.
Hey,
Yeah, fancy open
good to be back.
must mean Dan.
Back in the
Fancy
saddle.
Dan is back in the saddle. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Common Good Podcast. How do you stop Donald Trump's Third Reich revival? We're going to be talking a little bit about that today. But, before that, other things that kind of matter. Dan is back. Here in Minneapolis. Robb squirreled away somewhere outside of Fayetteville, Arkansas. And Dan, a lot of things have changed around here. Robb, I don't even know if you're familiar with the level of change that's happened in one of the three of us. I've become a professional sports bandwagon jumper.
Wow.
Oh, who are you on with?
Oh, this is
basketball.
Minnesota
You,
Timberwolves.
Yep.
Minnesota
Did
Timberwolves.
you catch the new tagline for your state?
No.
Did you see anything about this?
No.
I think it was Shaq was interviewing, or maybe it was Charles. No, I think it was Shaq was interviewing one of the players from the Timberwolves there. And he was like, man, I haven't been to Minnesota in 20 years. And without a beat, the player goes, well, get your ass here. And now that's like taking off as the state catchphrase. So
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Anyway, I decided to watch the Minnesota Timberwolves play Game 7 of a tournament series. And
NBA playoffs. Mm-hmm.
something. It was. It just really brought me back to old timey. I mean, I used to
because you used to play, right?
I used to play college. I played college basketball. I watched a lot of, especially NBA. Watched a lot of sports. Gave it up for when I became an adult in my mind. And but I've just regressed right back into it. I mean, this morning, my daughter, who works for Pentair, the supplier of water for the world and for all
Sorry,
the
what?
teams, yeah, they like.
That's strange with a name like Pent Air that they would be the supplier of water.
Yeah, tell me about it. I don't know the history of why, but they provide the big sponsors of all the sports teams. They sell pool pumps and water distribution things, and anyway, big water company. But this morning she said, "Hey, I got you a shirt with a Pentair and a Timberwolves logo on it." I'm like, I need to have it before I go out in public. I'm gonna start wearing sportswear.
Wow.
Well, until the Timberwolves do what they will do, which is have their business interests outweigh our fandom interests, and they will lose. So whatever. But for right now, super fun. So if you're not into NBA basketball, I get you. But man, this team of little engines that could is just so fun. And the athleticism. Did you watch the game on Friday? I don't want to bore people with sports because I know how inane it can be.
I just love how the tables have turned here. We're like,
Yeah.
Totally. But I'll tell you the athleticism, and I'm a big basket. I mean, I favor basketball over the Iron Curtain, or the gridiron. The gridiron
Kurt.
Very different, but yep.
and over the Iron Curtain doesn't matter. It's like when you watch those parkour people that now do bouldering and they run and jump off rocks and just do crazy athletic things.
Yeah.
That's the way this team was, flying through the air, just doing things that were exciting and fun and just ridiculous. It was just frivolous fun. So anyway, Robb, how are things over there in Arkansas? How's the no professional sports teams in Arkansas? Is that true?
No professional sports teams in Arkansas. We are united around the University of Arkansas Razorbacks. And it's baseball season right now, and the Omahogs are quite good. We call them the Omahogs because the College World Series is always held in Omaha, Nebraska, and so we call them the Omahogs because they go to the College World Series very often. Heartbreaking. 2-3 years ago, leading in the College World Series, 9th inning, 2 outs.
Wow.
They're ahead. Pop up fly ball. 3 guys come underneath it, and it drops in between them. And they lost the College World Series.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Sounds
That's
like
like Cubs level.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We're talking we're talking, Cleveland sports tragedy kind of thing. So yeah, but no professional teams. But it's hot here in Arkansas. It's hot.
Already.
Yeah. It was in the low 90s yesterday. It's going to be the same today. Yesterday, I also drove down to Little Rock to do I hosted a fundraiser for congressional candidate Marcus Jones in Little Rock, and 97 out in Little Rock, and
No.
and it was an outdoor event, and I was setting up, and I was sweating, and it was just miserable. So, yeah, it's that time of year where, though, we've got a little stock tank pool in our backyard. A stock tank, one of those, basically troughs that cattle drink out of.
Mhm.
And my wife has decided that would be a kind of a cool kitschy thing to have in the backyard, which we've had for several years now.
Where
And
else are mosquitoes going to breed? I mean, why
what's that?
where else are the mosquitoes going to breed if
Oh,
you
for
don't
sure.
out of water in your backyard?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so we cleaned out the stock. When by we, I cleaned out the stock tank pool on Sunday, and by the end of the day, there was all the neighborhood children in the stock tank pool. As it was filling up with the hose. When we're talking 2 inches of cold water, and as many
Everybody's in
little
it.
kids from the neighborhood as you could imagine in that thing. So yeah, good times here in Arkansas.
Well, that's fun. That's good and fun. Dan, how are things there in Michigan?
Oh, it's great. Speaking of bringing the neighborhood kids around, we got a trampoline, and if you ever want to become friends with all your neighbors, just get a trampoline. Yeah. We've met all the neighbors, all their kids. They're just here constantly.
Yeah.
Probably gearing up for a lawsuit when someone inevitably goes to the ER, but
sure. And you learn a lot about people the way they behave on a trampoline. There's a side of them that comes out. You're like, watch that kid. That kid.
Keep an eye on that one.
Yeah. And Whimsy is always pushing us to get her a trampoline, and my response is, Whims, Conrad has one. Alden and Addie have one. If you want to jump on a trampoline, go to your friend's house.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the pool and the swing set. All don't need all the same things. Yeah.
You're such a socialist. Here it is again. The kid just wants their own play area, and you're like, let's have one for the whole neighborhood.
That's right.
Somehow, libertarian-leaning people, they're so thrifty, they become socialists. It's just the wildest thing when it comes to their kids, right? Like, you don't need a car, take the bus. Hey, that's a little meme worth working on right there. My old man was such a libertarian, he became a socialist when it came to all my stuff. Well, look, socialism is not the fear that America is facing currently. It is the ever-failing social media effort called Truth Social that has chosen to put out a video about Donald Trump uniting the Reich. Not just unite the right. That's not enough. I mean, very 2020 to just unite the self-proclaimed Nazis in America that he wanted to do, because there were really good people on that side. And he wanted to make sure that they weren't defamed by the public. So as the sitting president of the United States, he threw his hearty endorsement behind them and them behind him with the Unite the Right nonsense and violence producing movement. Now, apparently the campaign ad references Unite the Reich.
Yeah. So on True Social, Donald Trump's, which we'll get to, failed thrift store version of Twitter. He shared a video. Now, a couple things to be clear. One, this was not a campaign produced video. This is somebody else produced this video, and It seems like Donald Trump shared it from his account, I think late yesterday, from his Truth Social account. So he shared the video. The video is it's kind of set like an old-fashioned newspaper kind of thing, with headlines and stories about all the things that will happen during Trump's second term as president. And in one of those news stories that's kind of shown in very faded print in the background, is the phrase, the creation of a unified Reich. And so that certainly, that got everybody's attention. Is the the sleuths on the internet, took a look at. It's a little bit like, back in the day, those who would play the cassettes backwards to find out what was masked on them. The subtle subliminal message, and that's here for Donald Trump. Now, a couple of things about this. One, the overt message of this video is offensive and annoying on its own. It's it includes the mention of the mass deportation of 15 million people, and it's offensive in and of itself.
Yeah, it's Reichish.
Yes. The second thing, since this has come up, Donald Trump, through his campaign staff, has claimed that it was a low-level staffer who posted this video.
Sure.
Now,
yeah.
Does anybody believe that a low-level staffer has access to Donald Trump's Truth Social account? Because I don't. I mean, this is Donald Trump is the first Twitter president. He got elected because of his use of social media. In part, one of the factors, his masterful use of social media as a means of galvanizing his base and getting his voters together and getting his message out. So when he got kicked off of social media, he created his own platform, Truth Social, because it is so critical to him. Listen, there's videos circulating now back in April where Donald Trump is speaking at Mar-a-Lago, where he says that only he and Dan Scavino, Dan Scavino has access to his Truth Social account. So if we are to believe Donald Trump, wink, wink, if we can, if we're to believe him, there's only two people who could have posted this video, and his campaign staff is lying by blaming it on some, low-level campaign staffer. There's no way a low-level campaign staffer has access to the video. Either Donald Trump did it or Dan Scavino did it. I think Donald Trump did it. He saw the video. He liked the video. And, he put it out there. Did he do it intentionally, knowing that there was this message about the Reich in it? Come on. Absolutely not. But this shows once again that Donald Trump might not be a Nazi, but the Nazis think he's a Nazi.
Yeah. Right. Well, and it came to light, people noticed this right away, started creating a buzz on the social media accounts, and Trump's campaign left it up.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, watch out, there's some Nazi stuff in your video you posted. They left it up. It's gone now, finally, but it wasn't like they hurriedly scrubbed it.
Right.
Is it possible that Donald Trump himself is considered a low-level staffer in the campaign? They have
That's just how they reference
one of the news stories that came out this week, that they really have stepped up the professionalization, so they consider him to be, hey, look, the campaign wants to make it perfectly clear. It was a low-level staffer that, for a lot of reasons we can't get rid of, who posted that.
But even
his name is Empty Suit. He's just being used by us for our purpose.
Do we remember a single time that Donald Trump backtracked on anything? Granted, I mean, Dan, you're right. They left it up for a while, but it's taken down now, and they blame this on a low-level staffer. Have we ever seen them go, like, in any way, shape, or form, indicate like, "Ooh, we shouldn't have done that"? I mean, we've seen him say and do outrageous stuff, and he always doubles down. He never.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he hasn't backtracked. This is a guy who famously said that, he's never apologized for anything, and he's never asked for forgiveness for anything.
Yeah.
Parenthetically, those of you who think he's a Christian, like, remember what it takes to be a Christian. But like, so I think it's super interesting that they have indicated in some way that like, maybe this is too far.
Yeah. And it's just a random mess of not being bothered by bad stuff. This is the thing about Trump's overall behavior. And we're all, for 8 years, we've had to make explanations about the guy to say, well, maybe that particular thing wasn't what he was trying to say. But that particular thing didn't bother him, right? So maybe he didn't think that unified Reich was what he was into, or perhaps understand it. But he was a big fan of Adolf Hitler's writings, apparently, from his former wife. Speaking of, his bedside reading choices. Normally,
Donald Trump doesn't read before he goes to bed. Come on.
Miss Maples said by his bedside was Mein Kampf. So maybe
it's
maybe
not
picture
reading
version,
choices.
or?
It's decorative. It's decorative.
He normally, a person would see that and think, I want that nowhere near me. Donald Trump not particularly bothered by him. It's like a horse trough in your backyard. Some people would say, I prefer not. Other people would say, I didn't pick it. My wife did, but I'll fill it. That kind of. Well, look, if this was the only, can you even imagine for a moment if there was something in the Biden campaign that even hinted at anything like this? The apologists would be doing to.
Yes, it would blow. It would absolutely blow up. Since we're talking about True Social, which is where Donald Trump posted this, True Social is now it's in its parent company, Trump Media. It's now a publicly traded company, which was a cash grab on Donald Trump's part to create some junk stock to make some quick cash. And like we might expect, his cult-like followers, spent their hard-earned money on propping him up once again, and he was able to make a bunch of quick money, which he needs because he owes over $500 million in judgments against him, and so Trump Media, that includes Truth Social, as a publicly traded company, now has to do something that Donald Trump has never done, and that is make their financial situation public. They have to announce quarterly earnings and projections for the next year and all of that kind of stuff that publicly traded companies have to do. And so, as it turns out, Trump Media and True Social first quarter of this year posted revenue of $770,500. Good job, guys. That's good revenue. Now, that's not profit, that's revenue. Because there is no profit. In fact, they have an operating net loss of $327.6 million.
And
now, listen. I have a Bachelor of Science in Bible from a small Christian college in Pennsylvania. I have a master's degree in Christian theology from a small seminary in Pennsylvania. I mean, I'm not a business expert. I'm not an MBA kind of guy. I I I don't know a lot, but it seems to me that $770,500 in revenue with $327.6 million in net losses.
It's a lot difference.
It doesn't seem like that's like the way to run a business.
There's a big difference between those two
I mean,
numbers.
this feels like Trump's steak level bad.
Yeah, this is casino bad.
That's right. Like, yeah, this is a guy who goes broke running a casino. I'm like, oh, how can you not run a social media network? These things are like,
everybody else has made themselves the wealthiest people in the world doing it. Look, the stock value of Trump Media and Technology Group Corp.
Yeah,
started out back in May at $13. Today, $43. Today, it's up to $43 from a high of $66. Somehow, investors, in all their wisdom, have decided, oh, this thing is worth money. It is just, just popped up to $44 a share. It's utterly ridiculous. Not picking just on this, just the way the stock market works is it's clearly not a company worth $13 a share. And for some reason, people are choosing to now day trade and buy and sell the stocks that were released. And for people who know the stock market, they know this. So pardon me for the explanation for those who don't pay attention to it. You're not actually buying the stock from the company at this point. They sold their stock at one point. That was the initial offering. Now everybody's just trading them for these. It's like like a company that sold you baseball cards. You bought them from the company through the store. The company got the money. Then when you trade,
a Topps guy or a Donruss guy?
We were so poor we didn't get to have.
Oh, Doug, that just got like a knife, like out of nowhere.
Let's bring that up in therapy.
Too poor for baseball cards. Wow.
Weren't they like a nickel back in your day? Or?
Yes. That's my point. When I watch the other kids trading the baseball cards, the company wasn't getting a cut of any of that. That's how stocks work, folks. So somehow people think that the stock that Billy owns right now in Trump Media and Technology Group is worth $30 more than it was when it first came out, and they just really want one of those stocks. So they're going to buy one of them or 100 of them or 10,000 of them. And look, and the stock market is up over 40,000 in the index. I mean, Joe Biden's economy is so good. Even Donald Trump's trashy social media company is somehow worth money. This Joe Biden apparently is just a money-making machine for even the most low-grade business failure opportunities going.
Rising tide lifts all boats, even Trump's.
Yeah. I wonder if the Trump Media and Technology Group Corp folks are just singing the praises of old Joe for what he's done to the stock market.
Yeah, I don't know.
Incredible.
But while Trump's Truth Social is on wobbly ground, you know what else is on wobbly ground? Trump himself.
The low-level staffer had trouble standing up when he came to Minnesota because somebody in his campaign said, "Get your ass over there," and he did. Came to the great state on the day that he also went to his son's graduation. Which, by the way, we haven't done any well wishing. All the best to Barron. I hope he had a great graduation, absolutely. And I hope, like me, he had to sit down that night and open the cards and see if there was enough money in there to allow him to go to college.
Doug, you're breaking my heart.
So I hope he had to dig through all the.
Listen. There was I saw posted on social media uh, from from some conservative account. It was actually the most endearing picture of Donald Trump I'd ever seen.
Oh,
It was him kind of smiling and waving to Barron during the
mm,
graduation. It was actually like it was super endearing.
yeah,
Yeah,
good for
yeah.
him.
Yeah, I mean
I,
it's nice that when you are, and I say this as someone who had a child late in life. Um,
hmm.
it's nice when you're a doddering old person to have the youth and exuberance of a high school graduate.
Yeah, yeah, just giving a little wink to the kid and having to lean over next to you and say, "Now he's mine, right? Or is he Ivanka's? Who's down?" sometimes he loses track. Remember when Donald Trump was being deposed for sexually assaulting a woman just months before a jury found him guilty of sexual assault?
Hmm.
He was asked in a deposition to look at a photo, and he looked at a photo of E. Jean Carroll and said, "Well, that's my wife." The video, friend, if you
Yes.
haven't seen the video, it's worth watching. It's him in a deposition and multiple times. And the attorney says, "Well, which one's your wife?" He points, "That one right there." And he says, "Oh no, that's Eugene Carroll." And he goes, "Oh, must be the camera." Like, no, it's your eyes and your memory. You literally can't tell the difference between your wife and the woman you sexually assaulted. That's this guy. So if he were having a little trouble, smiling at Barron, he may have just lost track. Just
Yeah.
lost track. That was one of the
Yeah.
grandkids, because he must have grandchildren, right? Do any of
Yes.
any of his children?
Yes. Yes. He has
Children?
grandchildren.
His grandchildren.
Yeah.
Haven't seen any. But are any of them 18? Does he have a son the age of his grandchildren? Does he have one of those? Is it one of those?
I don't think any of his grandchildren are 18.
Okay.
Dan, bring us back to this wobbliness that you were transitioning into.
Well, apparently the stage or the podium, there was some trouble. So Trump's wobbling all over the stage. The Biden camp obviously had a little fun with this. But we have the video, and I think it's worth watching just to see his response when
This
things aren't going his way.
Yeah,
Yep.
I have not seen this, so I'm
I think
excited to see this.
It's telling, it's not just like, oh, he's having a hard time standing still at a podium. Just the way he throws people under the bus
There it is.
and rambles. So we'll give it a watch and you can react to it.
Take mine, sir. I say, what the hell is that? I'm never going to lose this. This is going to be a part of our...
What was that?
Terrible.
Like a thumb drive? I don't even
But
know.
Americans are not struggling. This is the worst platform. Who put this stage up here? This is the worst. The frickin' place is falling down. I notice it keeps tilting further left. Like too many other things.
There it comes.
What a crappy contractor this was. No, it's true. I'm known as being a pretty tough negotiator, and sometimes I get a bad rep. A contractor does a bad job. Met a lot of great contractors there, but he does a bad job, I don't pay him. And then they say, Trump doesn't pay us. I pay my bills. I pay the bills so fast if they're good. But this happens to be, look, the teleprompter is useless. It fell down. I don't know why it fell down. It's not like, I don't mind. I've lost teleprompters to wind. There's no wind in here. So why the hell did it fall down? Did you see it? It fell down. I'm standing here listening to the great Lee Greenwood, and the teleprompter falls off the stage. Now I put my hand on this thing, and the thing tilts over. This is not... I think it was Emmer. Maybe Emmer doesn't like me. No, this sucker is really tenuous, I'm telling you. At some point... I won't leave, and we'll finish up, but this sucker is going to be sitting down there on the floor. I've never had this before. I've never had a podium that's falling
goodness,
down.
it's
I've
so
had
boring.
teleprompters. I was in
It's
Ohio.
just-
In fact, our great senator from
It's just
from
stream
North
of
Dakota, you were
conscious-
there for somebody that's going to win, I think, Bernie Moreno. And we had 45 mile-an-hour winds. We had 28,000 people. By the way, in New Jersey last weekend, we had 107,000 people. That's a poll, right? That's
Talk to a
but
congressional
we were there to
candidate
help
in New
Bernie
Jersey.
Moreno get elected Senate, running for
Didn't
the
have
Senate. He's doing
100,000.
well. And we had 45-mile-an-hour winds. And we had 2 teleprompters that were going like this. And then one broke and fell. I was waiting for that to happen.
Yeah,
I'm
because
supposed to be
everything
speaking like for an hour and a half, and I'm saying,
falls.
all by ourselves up here. We got no teleprompter, the stage. But at least we had winds. Here we don't have anything, and it's falling apart. This is what happens in America when you don't do things right. We don't like that, do we, huh? We don't like that. We don't like that. But Americans are not struggling to make ends meet because they're buying too many Snicker bars. We don't talk about that. They're struggling because we have the worst, most incompetent, most corrupt president in the history of our country without question.
Projection.
Yeah. Okay.
What was that at the beginning? What did he put in his pocket and said he was going to keep forever, which he's probably already, put in one of his pants boxes?
I don't even know.
Yeah, I think just some random thing somebody gave him. Here's the thing with Trump. He comes to Minnesota and he's at a fundraiser put on by the Republican Party, the GOP in Minnesota.
This is the Reagan dinner.
Fundraiser dinner. Everything in there has been put together either by union contractors or by the GOP. And he starts insulting the workmanship of the very people that he says he wants to vote for him.
Yeah.
And that he wouldn't pay them. His stated bragging, opportunistic notion is, I don't pay people unless they fulfill my singular desires. Why does Donald Trump continue to hire people that are so low grade, whether they're contractors, building superintendents, children, lawyers, that are so bad that he either has to fire them or not pay them? And why would you choose to insult the very people that you think are on your side? All because the podium wobbled and you felt like they're going to make a big deal out of this. His mind was racing with them recognizing him slipping, walking down the ramp. All the other times this poor man has fallen and stumbled and wobbled, that he starts just insulting contractors and then goes on and on about insulting people in other states. It's just unbelievably bizarre. And yet the people in the room are just laughing like crazy. And someone probably lost their job today from Friday because of this. And truly Republican Party, did you cut all the corners where you couldn't pay for a decent podium? Head down to Arkansas, as Jim suggests in the chat. Pick yourself up a $19,000 podium that the president can stand behind.
And listen,
that's what real Republicans do.
Okay. 2 things. Number 1, it's not a podium; it's a lectern, and because we have learned the difference. And number 2, I'm sorry, that lectern is no longer available because the governor has started using it. The lectern is finally out in the open and has been used several times now. Very exciting. Very exciting.
That should stop the lawsuits. And as Jim makes, or as the Squirrely Prepper Lifestyle makes comment on YouTube, he used to make fun of people for using teleprompters. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
He was all, that old Barack Obama can't even speak without a teleprompter. No, apparently he's just surrounded by them and is really bothered when they're not when they're not operating. And I get it, because when you're giving speeches, it's really helpful to be prompted in the text of the speech so you don't go on for an hour and 45 minutes, which of course he does. Just rambling. Just rambling.
Yeah.
And the way he can't finish a story without interrupting his own story with little bragging bits, like just get sidetracked by, oh, I said a number. That reminds me of another number that's bigger. Like,
We can work on that bit. Well, and the fact that his campaign has chosen to send him to Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, he made a real run in 2016 for Minnesota, and it was close. In 2020, not even close. The state that I know pretty well has moved even further from Trumpism. But he's spending money in Minnesota. He's spending money in New Jersey, thinking he can win in the presidential election the electoral votes from the state of New Jersey. All the best to you. Give that a run. While the rest of us are making sure that he doesn't win Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, and Arizona, he's thinking maybe I'll pick up Minnesota and New Jersey. Here's a guy who says a state is so democratic that I can't even get a fair trial in the judicial system, and yet he thinks he can win the states.
Which has me questioning this whole. We wanted to talk about this article inside the terrifyingly competent Trump 2024 campaign. And I read that headline and thought to myself, is it though? Like, I mean, I am worried about what would happen if he becomes president again and his cabinet and his picks for positions are even more sycophantic and loyal. But the campaign itself, I don't see a lot of signs of this terrifying competency.
Yeah, tell us about this terrifying competency of the Trump campaign, Doug.
Well, the people who are paying attention to this are recognizing that they're hiring the right people, which they've never done before, that they've brought real professionals inside for the first time. They didn't have them in 2016. They didn't even have them in 2020, but they do in 2024. And what the article is suggesting is that on the back end, they're doing a whole bunch of things that have nothing to do with Donald Trump, really running a ground game, really organizing, really fundraising, doing the kinds of things that a real professional level campaign could do, which they couldn't get access to in 2020 race because he was the president. And every time he went out, I mean, now like this stuff that we're looking at, a lot of people are probably only seeing this because we're showing it or because they're deep in the weeds like we are. Donald Trump is not in the faces of the American people every day. In 2020, it was every day because of COVID and other things, just all the time. So they couldn't operate a real campaign. But right now, there's people who are saying they've put together a really sophisticated operation, a really sophisticated team behind it, and it's a little bit terrifying. So that's the Politico's analysis of the kind of people that they have together. So now is a well-run campaign enough to make people do things they don't want to do? Not very often. And I think there's an increasing number of people. The Biden team, though, really wants Trump out there in front of people. That's why they pushed for these debates, to get these debates in June, because they want the American people remembering Donald Trump. They think to let him go loose for 2 hours on TV with Joe Biden is the best thing going for them. Just let people be reminded of this guy. And the sycophants, as you say, Dan, will be encouraged by that, and we'll love to hear it. And all the Unite the Reichers and all the Proud Boys and all the other stand back and stand buyers will be really glad to see him out there and really glad to hear him where they don't have to pay for a cable subscription. But the rest of the people, I think, are going to see this guy and just think this is not. I don't want to be going back to that. Now, had the contrast been Donald Trump versus a new, fresh face of Democratic political future, that would have been even better. Apparently, not happening unless Trump does. And I know this is really jumping the idea train here, but unless Trump does find that his conviction, which very likely could come out of this case in New York, is so problematic, and he's got another couple of cases coming, that he starts some sort of plea deal that gets him out of this. Because if he loses another actual case in a court of law, this time, not just his business, which was found criminally liable, not just civil lawsuits that were based on criminal misconduct, but now an actual criminal activity in New York. Man, this is where, as we've been saying since 2016, this guy is lawless. Like he's not just a criminal, he's lawless. He does not believe in the rule of law. Right. And once this comes bearing down on him, there is still, okay, I'll just say it one more time in May, and then maybe by June or by August, we won't have to say it anymore. There's still a chance that he won't be giving I accept your nomination as the nominee of the Republican Party for president of the United States. There's still a possibility that both he and Economy Joe are not going to be the nominees. I think there's a slimming possibility of that.
Do you think if for some reason Trump has to bow out, Biden passes the baton? Does he feel safe enough to be like, okay, I can tap out too?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I thought so 6 months ago that if this stuff had all come down in April or May, that would have been the case. I don't know if we get into August what the case is. I don't know. I think Joe Biden's primary need for him to be the candidate in 2024 is similar to 2020. He thinks he's uniquely capable of being president and of beating Donald Trump. Because I think he sees Donald Trump as an existential threat to the United States of America. Yeah. So I'm not sure he wants to be president from his 82nd or 81st to 85th, 86th year. It's a lot. It's not a great job. I know people think it's a great job. It's a very difficult job. There's a significant amount of time and energy and pressure. And do you really want to spend your waning years doing that job? You've been close to it for 8 years. You did it for 4. Is he real? I think there's a possibility that he would be glad to step away. But then who, right? Because I guess it would be Kamala Harris would be the most likely one to slide in. Can't imagine how else that would happen. And then that would get really interesting, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. My goodness.
Well, we got some more stuff to cover, and one of the interesting things happening right now is within the Republican Party, the disagreement over abortion laws and IVF, and Republicans are trying to soften their stance on abortion. This headline says, as abolitionists go further. One quote: they're just interviewing some people outside this protest. We want to ban IVF. Explained Matthew from Gainesville, Georgia. And another one says, we want to criminalize IVF. This quote from a abortion abolitionist really startled me. It said, the penalty could be anything from nothing at all if she was truly innocent, to a fine, community service, to, yes, some jail time, and possibly even the death penalty. And so this is the level of extremism that
is a wide range of punishments.
Right? Maybe a fine, maybe death.
Community service or the death penalty. Wow.
These people value life so much that they will kill you.
And it will be state-sponsored murder. Really in favor of the state-sponsored murder part of that. Right. It's just simply.
But do you think Republicans have a political problem on their hands with this? They've already had to backtrack and carve out.
Yes, they absolutely do. They completely missed the boat on reading the mood of the American public when it comes to the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. Yeah. We have seen in the aftermath of that over and over and over again in red states and those states that aren't considered battleground states like Kansas and Ohio, voters have overwhelmingly repudiated the Republican approach to this. Now, the big question becomes, and I have this frustration all the time here in Arkansas, when voters, 60% of voters pass an increase in the minimum wage here in Arkansas through ballot initiative, and at the same time vote for for individuals who oppose that. And like the pattern of the voting public here in Arkansas is they will vote for quote unquote progressive issues if they're ballot initiatives, but they won't vote for progressive candidates. And I'm trying to wrap my head around how this happens and why this happens and how to break through and all of this. I don't know if we're going to see that nationally with all of these initiatives, because in states, Florida's got abortion on the ballot. And so I think there's Republicans that are looking at these elections. They're looking at the polls. They're looking at all of the kind of the mood of the nation. And they're saying, whoa, we really jumped the gun here on doing this. Yes, we ought to be pro-life, but like let's slow this down a little bit. Donald Trump himself tried to do this with saying, it should be a states' rights thing. It should be decided by the states. We shouldn't have a national abortion ban. And so you've got those Republicans who are making the political calculation that if we keep going further and further to the extreme when it comes to this issue, we are going to lose at the ballot box. And then there are those who are the true believers who are like, elections be damned. We have to do this because it's the right thing to do. These embryos are actually, living human souls. And, even if they're in a freezer somewhere, we've got to protect them, and you can't just kill them. And so I think there's absolutely a disconnect within the Republican Party. It's going to be interesting to see who ends up winning out, if it's going to be kind of the pragmatists who are reading the polling and want to win elections, or if it's going to be the true believers who want this kind of abolition.
Yeah. And I think, Dan, the question is, are they freaking out is the right one, because you see this other news story that Ted Cruz, senator from Texas, super conservative, and Katie Britt from Alabama fame are trying to introduce a bill to protect IVF. Like when those two lawmakers are feeling they have to initiate protections for in vitro fertilization because of the movement in their own party and their own, self-described pro-life movement, they're in trouble, right? They really want to get a bill in front of people so that lawmakers can vote on it, so they can say, I voted to protect IVF. Because the Supreme Court in Alabama said it can be banned, and then all these activists are out there. It's a real problem. Even South Dakota has put a referendum on the ballot about abortion. Like states are doing this thing, and I don't think it's going to be, I don't know where South Dakota is going to come down on it, depending on how the wording of that referendum goes. They might even put in their constitution the banning in the third trimester. But it's rallying people up in a way that, for a lot of people, it's probably not their first issue. If you're a Republican and you've changed your views, or you have different views in the Republican Party on abortion, you think that women should have the right to make this decision in the privacy of their own consultations, it may not be the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about who you're going to vote for, but it's pretty dang important to people. And when the weight of that plus a bunch of other things, is what gets you. I just think a lot of people who are swinging in their voting, they're like a lot of us when we go to a restaurant. And if you've ever been in a restaurant with, say, a group of people, and you say to, the person next to you, maybe it's your spouse or partner, someone and you're like, hey, what are you going to get? And then they say, I think I'm going to get the salmon. And then you go around the table and it comes to them and they say, I think I'm going to have the beef. And at the last minute you go, how'd you go from the salmon to the beef? And they're like, I looked at the sides. I kind of wanted the sides. There's a lot of people who are like, I'm going to vote Republican, of course. And then it comes around and they're like, oh yeah, no, hang on, I'm just going to, it just didn't feel right to me this time. I think there's a lot of voters who feel so off put by Republicans, and this stuff is just part of what makes them feel gross. And they didn't think this was the America that they wanted to find themselves living in. So I feel like all these little issues for a small select group of people, 8% of the voting population, maybe 10, just enough to make. And I know that there's a lot of people who think that's what's happening with the United States support of Israel, that's going to be the thing. But I think I just think that's super deep in the woods for people compared to a criminal candidate and a guy who just says he won't pay his bills and somebody who represents a party that wants to support those who want to ban all this stuff at this high level. I look, if Republicans can pull off a win at the national level in this environment, well, that tells us a lot about the setting in America and the work that needs to be done. Like, are you kidding me? Because for all this talk we want to do about people have lost their institutions, people have lost their commitment to political parties or to organizations, apparently not. Apparently not. Apparently people are like, I am brand loyal, top to bottom. Doesn't matter. Put an R on it and you got me. And if that's true across the country in enough places, well, okay, we really need to reorient some things.
Yes.
Yeah. and a lot of people are asking if Joe Biden is up for the task. And on Fox News, they're saying not without medication. There's this new conspiracy that went even too far for the Fox News host. This congressman, I believe, decided to espouse these conspiracy theories that for the State of the Union address, Joe Biden was heavily medicated, jacked up Joe, as he likes to call him, and that there's no way he can hang with Trump in a 2-hour debate unless he's on drugs, and claimed to have evidence that he can't disclose to anybody. And even the Fox News host was taken aback by this. So it's like they're peddling conspiracies too extreme for Fox News at this point.
Yeah. He's not only a congressman from North Carolina, Representative Murphy. He is a licensed doctor and the head of the Republican Doctor Caucus.
Doctor Caucus.
And which is a great phrase. I'd like to go to Dr. Caucus. And he said, my opinion, professional opinion, is there's no way Joe Biden could have stood up for the entirety of that State of the Union speech without the use of some kind of pharmaceuticals. Believing he's jacked up on something because, as he put it, he screamed for 2 hours, which Joe Biden hasn't screamed for 2 hours collectively in his life.
Well, and what doctor would make any sort of claims about this without, like, any real doctor would be like, well, I haven't examined the patient, so I can't make any sort of generalizations.
I don't know, Rand Paul?
Yeah, Rand Paul.
Okay, I guess we can list a few.
that Dr. Tremeculite or whatever his name was, who was the guy, the hippie doctor that Trump went to and got his physical from.
Yep.
And it was writing all the prescriptions for the what was the vermiculin or something. What was the drug?
Ivermectin. Yeah.
Dr. Ivermectin, didn't he? Yeah. So there's a lot of quacky doctors, but usually when someone has reached a level of professional demand, doctor, congressperson, on television, you're not literally saying things that the host is saying to you. Oh, okay, hang on. Let's go back to this again. Are you telling me your professional opinion as a doctor and someone who saw Joe Biden in the room giving the speech that he was on some sort of drugs? And then Murphy says to Bartiromo, after the show, I'll show you the evidence. She's like, no, share right now. You're on TV talking about it. What is it?
Yeah.
He wants to show her like pictures of what he looked like before and then what he looked like in this thing. And they've clearly got him on some kind of, intravenous pumping. Just bizarre. And I think the guy is as serious as can be. This is what's scary about it. I think he is so serious that he honestly believes that Joe Biden could not stand up in a 2-hour debate with Donald Trump. He physically could not talk for 2 hours or stand up. He believes that to be true. It's just what, look, when Joe Biden does this debate and people see him in contrast, the Republicans have made Joe Biden out truly to be feeble and almost, Roosevelt like rolled in and covering up the fact that he's in a wheelchair and almost physically propped up, and someone with a string moving his mouth while he looks like they've just made him out to be someone who is immobile. And when Biden pops up in this debate, it's going to really,
and it's, typically
with he's on drugs.
Typically what happens in a debate is you try to raise the expectations for your opponent and lower the expectations for yourself so that your opponent does not reach those expectations, and so that you can meet and exceed the expectations. So for them to talk about how Joe Biden is so feeble and so weak, they're doing the opposite of what they should be doing. But at the same time, maybe part of the strategy here is they realize, thanks Alex for including me, I appreciate that. Saw that you had left me out in your comment. I was going to make a comment about it, but so interrupted myself there. But so maybe what they're doing here is they know that Joe Biden is going to be more impressive than people expect. And so they are beginning already once again to lay the groundwork for why. They were caught flat-footed by how well he did at the State of the Union, and immediately came up with the, he must have been jacked up on something excuse. So maybe now they're trying to set that expectation that, if he does well, if he's got energy, if he's able to do it, well, it must be because he was on something.
Literally on something. I mean, it's just, and this is why, if you've wondered, because my friend Casey brings up to me all the time, how come we haven't found out whose cocaine it was that they found in the offices around the subtle narrative is that Hunter Biden is bringing cocaine for Joe and he's snorting Joe. That's what they mean. Jacked up on something.
Yep. So
Cokie Joe is what it's insane.
Jacked up Joe.
Because the president that they support is clearly taking Adderall at a criminal level, right? I mean, the projection in this crowd from Trump right through to all these people talking about lawlessness and not following the laws of America. It's in law and order. It is just an alternative reality that is unbelievably bizarre. And these folks just keep it flowing. Now, fortunately, Fox viewership is down. People aren't paying attention. Maria Bartiromo probably doesn't get in the ears of most Americans. Well, certainly doesn't get in the ears of most Americans. And so, you always have to wonder if you should even be promoting this stuff. But this is, if you're in the world of Trumpism, this is what you're hearing all the time. This is what they talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Guys, there's big news. It's a big day. It's day. I'm shifting out of this story, but it's day 20 of Donald Trump on trial in New York, and the defense has rested its case.
The defense did.
Defense did. Donald Trump is not taking the stand in his own defense,
which he really wanted to.
Yeah. Apparently he didn't. Apparently he chose. I mean, here's the question, Rob, Dan. Why won't Donald Trump just tell us the truth? Why can't we hear from Donald Trump? Let's hear from Donald Trump. Let him speak. Why won't his attorneys let him speak?
Yeah.
Can't imagine.
Why won't they let him speak?
So, he did not testify in his own defense, despite publicly proclaiming numerous times that he would. It's almost as if he lies. I don't know if you followed much. I mean, there was talk about how the prosecution was really damaged by Michael Cohen's testimony, and And then, there was talk about how the defense was really damaged by Robert Costello's testimony, who's Michael Cohen's attorney. Who knows? Who knows what any of that means? Apparently, final closing arguments are going to be on Tuesday, a week from today. The judge wants closing arguments to all be done on one day. It looks like we are about a week away from this being in the hands of the jury, and
Tuesday night will be a verdict.
And it will be a question of how quickly the jury comes back. That's going to be fascinating to see. And they're working on jury instructions right now. And the judge and the legal teams are hammering that out. They're going to do that over the next week. And we're almost done with
trial one.
One of the most riveting and important episodes of Law and Order yet.
This is up there with OJ.
We should prepare ourselves because juries do things. Juries make decisions.
Yes.
That's a hung jury, or he's found not guilty. That's a very real possibility. And I'll just say to anybody who doesn't think it's possible, it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we also have to be prepared for it to be a fast guilty verdict or a slow guilty verdict. And then what?
Yeah.
And then what? Like what we are facing in this country, that a former president and the most recent not president is about to be judged by a jury for criminal activity that he undertook as a part of his election and that he continued to commit while president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The weight of this, I mean, because the absurdity of all the nonsense of the people Trump has put himself around. For a guy who hires the very best, why did he hire Michael Cohen? Why is he with Stormy Daniels? Why does he keep surrounding himself with liars? Why, why does he just have, I mean, I don't have a lot of liars around me. I don't know if you guys do. Do you have a lot of people lying about you on a regular basis? No, hardly any.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
At
least none that have been on my payroll, my personal payroll, or that I've slept with recently.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And I mean, listen, I think you're absolutely right, Doug, that, this was not a hush money trial, as it's been called. This is a trial about bookkeeping and falsification of records, and it's a trial about the inappropriate use of money and the falsification of that to hide what was taking place. The prosecution has really relied heavily on two witnesses: the porn star that he slept with and the convicted liar who was his fixer in all of this. If the jury was to say, not sure I find either of those people credible, I can't convict based on, these not credible witnesses. There's a world in which you could find a juror who that's going to be their approach. And, so I think you're absolutely right that did Donald Trump commit this crime? Absolutely. And then some. Is he going to be convicted in a court of law because the prosecution proved it beyond a reasonable doubt? I hope so. Mm-hmm. But we got to prepare for it not to happen.
Now, I do think that the real case, as opposed to the one that's takes up a lot of time and in the headlines, has been the documents that they've been showing. Here's a letter. Here's a check. Here's communication. Here's what they did. That's the rest of this,
here's them writing on the bottom like what the payment structure is going to look like.
Yeah. Here's the loan document that Cohen had to go get, so he could mortgage his house to pay this, because he's such a liar. He's going to mortgage his house on behalf of the lie, whatever. It would take a lot. And I've been on a jury where it took us 5 days to find someone guilty of assault. It was, I'm being put in a black box on a regular basis. It was brutal. And the consequences were nowhere near this high. But it's just hard when you sit in that jury room, because it's now just 12 people and there's nobody else telling you anything. You get to decide what you want to decide. And that's the trial format we have in this country, and we tell ourselves it's a good one. And here's what I don't understand, truthfully. This trial is so important. The judge literally said, well, closing arguments can't start until next week because court's going to be out on Friday because we have other stuff. And then court's going to be out on Wednesday or something. And then Friday, if we give it to him Friday, then it's over the Memorial Day weekend, and we don't want to bother him with that. Like, what? I don't
want to cut into the holiday weekend.
Yeah, like these people
might be at the lake.
I appreciate
all their time thinking about it and not being able to talk about it. And I don't know. I feel like that choice for just scheduling seemed really bizarre to me. You would think you'd want these people making decisions. When I was on a trial, and the trial was 3 days, and it took us 5 days, like it was hard to remember what we heard a while back. Now they're adding another week to before they even. So I guess they'll hear the closing arguments, and that'll kind of sum it all up or kind of remind people. So now a bunch of it, leans into the closing arguments. But anyway, the whole system we have in this country sometimes feels super suspect about how slow this takes and what these poor jurors are going to be suffering through.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Is that good?
Yeah, I think that's plenty for a day. That was a fire hose of politics.
Donald Trump heavy.
Chat, Alex and Peggy and Jim, Squirrely Prepper Lifestyle. If you don't know what I'm talking about right now and you're watching this somewhere, these are people over on Instagram. Or no, they're not. They're over on I got blacked out for that. That's good.
YouTube.
What do you think's going on with my thing?
It seems to be on your end. I'm not just messing with you.
Arlene and Donna and Arlene coming in and making some comments. We appreciate that.
Yeah,
Terry,
thanks for hanging with us.
Terry with the what a bunch of nonsense. Don't know if Terry was talking about us or Donald Trump. I mean, either would probably be true.
Yeah, right.
No.
We'll take it. But thanks, y'all. And next week's a little squirrely on this, so we'll get back to you about our schedule, what we're doing, because we have to go to Colorado. But anyway, we'll see you down the road, and we'll see you on the next one of these.